Alright, we're taking another look at some of the champions that we have in the lineup, and one champion that you will unlock fairly early in your raid career is of course Archmage Hellmut. And I personally kind of like him a lot, but there's a lot of people that are always asking, hey, is this actually somebody worth building? The ratings on him are a little bit, I mean, they're all over the place, if we're honest. And what does he actually give you? Where can he be used? And why is it a champion that you should actually build? And what exactly does he provide for the team? So let's take a quick look at the Archmage and how you actually should equip him, what kind of masteries we're going to use here, and again, where he is best used in the game. So Hellmut is one of the champions that you're going to get through the Doom Tower, through the secret rooms. I personally actually like him a lot, and I used him a lot. Now, to be fair, the context of this is also depends very heavily on what kind of champions you already get. As so often, if you have a better alternative already in your account, you got lucky with some of your pulls, then obviously some of the arguments that I'm going to make in his favor are going to disappear. But you can see here that he is very useful in Faction Wars. He's absolutely great there. He's also kind of rated pretty decently for Arena. I have to admit I never really used him Arena myself, but I can totally see the appeal. Typically though, at this point you will have better Arena champions, so maybe he's somebody that you can still use in Team Arena, but I would be pretty surprised if at the time where you pull him, you still need him in your normal Arena team, or God forbid even in Live Arena. He's kind of decentish in some of the dungeons. The one thing that I'm always missing a little bit when we're talking about the ratings here is things like Doom Tower and also just Cursed City, because I really think that in a lot of those areas he can be quite strong, and the reason for that is pretty simple. Now, first of all, we have in regards to the aura, you are immune, sorry, the aura, his passive, you're immune to turn meter effects from the enemy. In a day where back then we had basically just Arbiter leading everything and then Lysandra coming in and reducing your turn meter, that could have been a bit useful, but generally speaking it's honestly not something that's going to knock your socks off here. The aura is an increased ally speed in Arena by 17%. As I said before, I would be surprised if at the time where you get him, you don't have a better alternative. We talked in one of the recent videos about Deacon, for example. So if you have a Deacon, then that's already by default just your better option right there. So the passive and the aura, not really all that great, if honest about it. His A3 is pretty nice though. You have a 3-turn cooldown when he's booked. He doesn't really eat a lot of books on the A3, which is fantastic. And then you have an increased speed, you have increased crit rate, and increased crit damage. Now, increased crit rate, not something... It's a little bit of a weird one for me personally, because normally when you're talking about crit rate, you either have a champion that is already sitting at 100% crit rate, or at least extremely close, or you don't care about the crit rate at all. Where it matters a bit more, I think, is when we're talking about the bad affinity matches, because as you've seen maybe in one of the videos that I did, we had the exact stats of what that actually does when you go against a stronger affinity. When you have a weak hit coming in, it also reduces your crit chance. So having the crit rate increase here will help you if you are going up against, let's say, a mixed Doom Tower wave where you have multiple affinities, and some of those might be weak affinities for your damage dealer. So this is going to help to still land halfway decent damage and not miss out on critical damage. The increased crit damage itself is obviously fantastic as a buff. The increased speed, also something that's quite useful. For me personally, the A2 is something that I like the most about him though, because right here it becomes a bit interesting. So in this case, you're coming in, you're attacking one target, and then afterwards, if this is critical, you hit everybody else and you have a very high chance to apply a stun. And if you don't apply a stun, then you also have a turn meter decrease. This helps a lot with wave control. As I said before, when you're talking Cursed City, when you're talking Doom Tower, this is actually incredibly helpful. And it's one of the main ways that I use him currently. Still, in Faction Wars, for example, same thing applies. Because in a lot of those areas, if you can't control the other wave, you are going to run into problems. Especially when we're going into, let's say, Faction Wars hard, you are going to run very, very quickly in lineups that have a lot of locked debuffs, that have tons of buffs for themselves, they drop strength and whatnot, and start to applying debuffs to your team. So if you can come in early with maybe 2 or 3 of your champions being able to control the other team with stuns, turn meter control, and other things, that really helps. And Hellmut is great here. So this A2 is absolutely fantastic. So you want to make sure they can land that, and this is something that we're going to talk about in a moment. His A1, on the other hand, yeah, it's an A1. You have a little bit of turn meter increase here. and you have it increased also when the attack is critical, so that's quite nice. Generally speaking, the stronger you make him, the better he is in that context. Now, we've already spoken a little bit about just speed and speed gear when we talked about Deacon and other leads that you have, let's say in Arena. So typically, your best speed gear goes to other champions. Hellmut is a nice one, don't get me wrong, so you should still prioritize speed on him as you should for every other champion, but he has a couple of other things that we need to focus on too, so if his speed is not like the... if he's not at 400, then you're still fine. So in this case, I have him at 245. Could still boost him. Again, he doesn't play the biggest role in my lineup. He's just a nice tool that every now and then I bust out when I really need him. But I have other champions and a lot of legendary champions here that are usually better than him. But particularly when you start pulling him, he can be super, super useful. So you should make sure that he has a decent amount of accuracy. I'm having him at roughly 400 right now. Again, not the best gear that I have in my lineup, could boost all of these things, but it's important that your accuracy is high. You want to make sure that he can control these waves so that his A2 really, really lands. When we're talking about his crit rate, it needs to be at 100, obviously, to trigger the attack against every single opponent on the other side when we land our A2, but also for the A1, as you saw a second ago. If you can combine it with some extra crit damage, fantastic. Don't go out of your way to boost crit damage. If you can, without dropping speed, without dropping accuracy too much, that's awesome. You should definitely do it, but it's not really a priority for him. His job, despite being an attack-based champion, is not to dish out insane amounts of damage. What you want to do with him is you want to make sure that he buffs your own team, gives you that speed boost, and you want to also make sure that he gets that stun in on the opponent's side. So speed and accuracy are your two most important things. And crit rate, obviously, 100%, so that you get all the benefits from your A1 and your A2. And after that, I would probably focus a little bit on HP and defense. You can see he even has some 5-star gear here still, but he's typically somebody that you just want to survive through the waves, and then he does his thing. He buffs your team, he stuns on the other side. Ideally, you have a second CC train, like a crowd controller, that can really help you with that, and you chain them off to each other, and then you can play that out. That typically lands you with an accuracy banner. In this case, I don't even have speed on the accuracy banner, so if I would get him some of my better gear, I could buff the speed even further, but usually the speed that I have him on right now is sufficient for the areas where I use him in. If at some point I really, really struggle in a couple of waves, then I could always, you know, increase the speed, make him a little bit faster, and help him to circle through those abilities a lot more often, ideally, so that he gets even more buffs out. When we're talking about the masteries, in this case it's actually built so we're going up against any kind of boss. He also helps out with War Master. If you're really just worried about him surviving, then you don't have to go for the offense tree. You can actually go then straight into the defense tree. There's a couple of ways of how you could build him. You could, as the final mastery, also take Eagle Eye if you are thinking about giving him more accuracy. If you're struggling to apply all of those things, then that's definitely an option. But keep in mind, this is basically something that only your A2 benefits from. So if you're using him in a very different context, then the support tree over there is going to look quite different, because then accuracy might not play the biggest role. But if you're using him as a crowd control tool, then this is obviously something that you're looking for. But if you, again, don't care about his damage at all, not even about the procs on War Master, then you can go for the defense tree. You can then even think about getting resistance, for example. So there's a lot of really good things that you can actually get him for. One of the reasons to go for the offense tree is, of course, it helps you a little bit to reach the 100% crit rate that you need. As you are already on a 100% crit rate, you might as well also, you know, boost his damage a little bit. Crit damage here is quite nice. So it's not like he doesn't do any damage, but he's just not, it's not a main focus. More important things, as usual, is of course Law of Steel over here that you should use. That gives you a bit more of a boost when you're going into speed sets and others. And then on top of that, we also have the rapid response here, which is another really strong tool when we're talking about someone like Hellmut here that has a ton of buffs that he gets out too. Obviously, Evil Eye can be useful as well, especially if you're trying to use him in Arena, but there are other options. This is a little bit of a preference pick that we have for sure. And then we still have lasting gifts over here. If you have the extension, that's obviously quite nice too. Just a couple of ideas here on how to build him. Again, masteries will differ a bit depending on where exactly you want to use him and what you want to do with that. But generally speaking, Deacon is a very, very powerful tool in my opinion early on. if you have focused on Doom Tower right from the beginning, when you actually unlock Doom Tower, you should get him pretty quickly, and then I would very heavily recommend that you build him, because he's going to help you in Doom Tower and in the Cursed City, a lot of other areas, and he is a really nice asset to have. You might have some other priorities at the start, but he's definitely a good tool. Despite the mixed ratings that he has here, I personally think he's absolutely worth building. He provides a lot. And later on in the game, Faction Wars is going to be one of the most important things for you. Especially Faction Wars Hard is pretty difficult. And the glyphs that you get will make a massive, massive difference. So as you progress through the game, Faction Wars are going to become more and more of an objective for you, of like a direct thing that you need to focus on. And in that context, Hellmut is absolutely fantastic. So you should put him into accuracy gear, perception if you have it. In this case, I got some divine speed on him. I have speed gear on him. This is like all a bit of a B tier setup here with speeds, but again, he's hitting pretty decent stats. So if you have anything of that lying around here, drop it on Hellmut, and he is definitely going to help you out. I hope that was useful. I hope you guys learned something from this. Hope you have a lot of fun with Hellmut once that you pulled him. Again, if you have any questions around this, drop a comment in the comment section. Give the video a like if you made it this far into the video. And, well, that's it for the day. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.